as desperate congressional Republicans rage about the Hunter Biden plea deal, they're being repeatedly reminded that a Trump appointee with full discretion prosecuted the case by the media, Twitter, and by the Trump-appointed prosecutor himself. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. Republicans and conservative thought leaders continue to flounder in the aftermath of Donald Trump's federal indictment by special counsel Jack Smith. And they're floundering in the most predictable ways, rather than refocusing or reprioritizing on issues that matter to the American people, which might engender some goodwill, or just distancing themselves from Donald Trump, taking the time to say, you know what, Donald Trump really, he doesn't have the temperament, the judgment, or anything else to be this party's front runner. That would be a bold moral stance. Instead, they're doing the predictable thing, which is redoubling their efforts on whataboutism, Hillary's emails, Hunter Biden, and everything else. Then we have the Hunter Biden plea deal, which was publicly announced yesterday, in which Hunter Biden has pled guilty to a gun felony and 2 tax misdemeanors. And that was a deal reached between Hunter Biden and his attorneys and the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney prosecuting him, David Weiss. And the plea deal has to be approved by a judge. So there's multiple layers involved here. Predictably, however, Republicans are raging about this because, of course, to them, Hunter Biden, who was only ever the civilian son of a vice president, now president, who never had a position in any government. He didn't have a position in the Obama White House. He didn't have a position in the Biden White House. He's just a very troubled civilian son of a politician. To Republicans, that is infinitely more important and deserves infinitely more scrutiny than anything that goes on with a former president himself, Donald Trump, who is running for president again. Even though, as you and I have discussed again and again and again on this channel, the standards should be wildly different. You should infinitely scrutinize more government actors, people who wield state power, than private U.S. citizens. Donald Trump should be scrutinized with a magnifying glass at all times for the rest of his life compared to Hunter Biden. But Republicans see it the opposite way because it's convenient for them. And so having said all that, they're not handling the aftermath of, again, Trump's federal indictment and the plea deal reached by Hunter Biden, even though he pled guilty, even though it's an admission that he acted wrongly, he committed crimes, and it's a guilty plea. You should take that as a victory. Republicans won't do that because it's not generating enough of a splash. So I want to play some reactions here because it's just great. There's a lot of schadenfreude here. We should all bask in the delight of their incompetence and their whataboutism and their misaligned priorities. And I want to play some clips, particularly involving Speaker McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House of Representatives, as well as reactions on Twitter. And then finally, a letter that was written by the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, David Weiss, who prosecuted Hunter Biden, a letter that he wrote to Republicans. So let's play the clip and we'll unpack it.
On Capitol Hill a short time ago. Let's listen.
Your reaction?
My first reaction is it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you are the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Now, this does nothing to our investigation. It actually should enhance our investigations because the DOJ should not be able to withhold any information now, saying that because of pending investigation, they should be able to provide Chairman Comer with any information that he requires.
But Mr. Speaker, this is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney that's held over into this administration. Why won't you accept
It's
this
done.
is a thorough investigation and to just accept it on its merits given the person who investigated it?
It was a thorough investigation.
Why would you accept? I'm asking you.
But I'm asking you. So you believe it's a thorough investigation?
I'm asking you.
Do you think it's equal and fair that a political opponent is going to be given jail time, but a presidential son, and if you compare this to other individuals in America that have these same accusations against them, same crimes that they had been guilty of, that they were proposed to have 10 years another time period, I think that's a difference in justice.
So that was the first clip, and the second clip that we're going to play here in a minute is a different angle on that same interaction, but there's more to it. It's clarified, it's expounded upon between Kevin McCarthy and the CNN reporter. But note what he says. You know, Kevin McCarthy seems shocked at the idea that Hunter Biden, who's clearly a beneficiary of privilege, there's no question about it. He is the wealthy son of the man who right now is the most powerful person on earth. There's no question that there's nepotism involved and privilege involved, but that's not unique to Hunter Biden. That's something that that pervades this entire system, which Republicans fiercely defend. Whenever it's somebody, who is experiencing the raw end of the deal, who happens to be a minority or a member of a disenfranchised group, then the privileged, the two-tier system between the privileged and the unprivileged matters, or doesn't matter. Here, it matters because the person who may arguably be receiving some privilege is Hunter Biden. Now, I'll also point out that the charge that's being brought against Hunter Biden, the possession of a gun under controlled substance, when the user has controlled substance, it's very rarely brought in the first place. So you could argue it's a sweetheart deal or it's a lenient deal compared to somebody who isn't privileged, but you could also make the case that that charge may have never been brought in the first place. So that's one vector of the conversation. And then note again, when it's pointed out, well, listen, the guy who's investigating him, that was a Trump appointee. Why won't you accept the facts at face value? Kevin McCarthy dissembles. Well, you're saying it's a free, or that it was a fair and thorough investigation, that it was a fair and thorough investigation. Like he doesn't even challenge the conclusions. He produces no evidence that the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney was taking it easy on Hunter Biden. He just makes the assumption because it's convenient for him. I want to play another clip here, and then we will go from there.
Of records into this case. Now, he also is indicating that House Republicans plan to call the U.S. attorney in this case, David Weiss. There's some discussion ongoing about bringing him in to testify. And he also downplayed the notion that this was, in fact, a Trump-backed attorney who is held over into the Biden administration that led this effort into Hunter Biden. Now, when I caught up with Speaker McCarthy earlier today,
that first part was in reference to House Oversight Committee James Comer. James Comer, who's investigating Hunter Biden through the House Oversight Committee and the Biden family and President Biden, according to the CNN reporter, is trying to downplay the fact that the person who made the deal with Hunter Biden, who prosecuted Hunter Biden, was a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. So let's continue.
He tried to compare the Hunter Biden case with the case involving former President Donald Trump, even though the two cases are much different and the facts are different as well.
David Weiss is the Trump-appointed attorney. Do you not have confidence in him?
No, the question I have, you want equal justice in America. Mm-hmm. It just seems to me that if you are the leading opponent of the president, you're going to get jail time. But if you're the son of the president, you don't get any jail time.
See, there's two separate cases. Why conflate them?
I'm not conflating them.
But they're alleging he lied to investigators. That's the issue.
You can handle it different. Well, did Hunter Biden lie about his taxes? Did Hunter Biden lie about the gun?
Well, I don't know. He pleaded guilty to the situation. Well,
so you see what Speaker McCarthy's doing here. Kevin McCarthy's saying, okay, well, you have person A and person B. Person A is being indicted on one set of crimes, and person B is being charged, not indicted because there's no grand jury involved, charged with a different set of crimes. Two different people, two different crimes. No commonality there. And saying that, okay, well, person A has pled guilty to a different set of crimes, and person B has not pled guilty to those crimes, and this person's probably not going to get jail time. This other person might. I mean, the trial hasn't gone on. I mean, he's just comparing apples and oranges, right? So the indictment against Donald Trump, we have not gotten to trial. We don't know what the consequences will be if there are convictions. And there are 38 charges, 37 of them, I believe, are felonies. But it doesn't mean that he's going to be found guilty on all of them or any of them. He may be found guilty on a few and not others, so we don't know. But it's not like McCarthy is comparing two relatively comparable things. It's not like Hunter Biden and Donald Trump committed similar, let alone the same, crimes under similar, let alone the same circumstances or facts, right? So he's making these wild conclusions or wild comparisons and drawing conclusions from them where there's no significance, and he's doing it simply to distract. As the CNN reporter comes out, well, wait a minute. Are you saying that simply because there's a particular outcome with this particular person and this particular case and these particular facts, that there has to be the same outcome for another person with a different set of crimes or charges against them and a different set of facts? it doesn't follow. That's it's not legally tenuous at all. So as silly as that is, though, I do want to point out that the media and Twitter, I mean, we just showed the media, but Twitter is having a great time. Members of Congress on Twitter, prominent progressive and leftist accounts are pointing out, if you do a search in Twitter for Trump appointed, you will find some great opportunities, some great tweets where people are just pointing out left, right, and center. This was a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. You can get mad all you want, but it strains credulity that a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney is working with Trump's political enemy to go easy on Trump's political enemy's son, right? So I would encourage you to do a search and check it out. But the other thing I want to point out to you is that David Weiss, the person who prosecuted this case, he wrote a letter to Republicans. And he says, Dear Chairman Jordan, referring to Jim Jordan, your May 25th letter to Attorney General Garland was forwarded to me with a request that I respond on behalf of the department. While your letter does not specify by name the ongoing investigation that's the subject of the committee's oversight, its contents suggest your inquiry is related to an investigation in my district. If my assumption is correct, I want to make clear that as the Attorney General has stated, I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution, consistent with federal law, the principles of federal prosecution, and departmental regulations. So that was the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who was appointed by Trump and then tasked by Bill Barr to investigate Hunter Biden. So two partisan Republican political operatives with a bias against Joe Biden and his son appointed this man to investigate Hunter Biden. Joe Biden, when he became president, had the power to fire this guy day one, just to let him go. Instead, Joe Biden and Joe Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland allowed this Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to continue to investigate Joe Biden's son. That is an act of superhuman, unparalleled political and legal integrity that no Republican, let alone Donald Trump, would ever be capable of duplicating. This is demonstrative, as flawed as they are, of the moral superiority, the ethical superiority over Democratic officials over Republican officials. This is simply a fact. And to have David Weiss point this out, like, listen, I was basically given a blank check. They could have fired me at any time, and instead they gave me ultimate discretion over when, where, and how, and against whom to bring charges. So it's fun to watch the Republicans continue to flounder in this respect, and I would encourage you to watch it. I'm sure it's going to get much worse, and I suppose I wouldn't be surprised if David Weiss is hauled in front of a Republican-led congressional committee, but I imagine that would be profoundly embarrassing for them if they did that. So maybe they should.